Here's a thought that sounds absurd until you understand it. The steady paycheck you rely on, the thing that feels like the very foundation of your financial security, might be the single biggest reason you never become wealthy. Not because it's too small. Even a large paycheck can do this. The problem isn't the size of the number that lands in your account every 2 weeks. It's what that reliable, comfortable, predictable paycheck quietly does to your behavior, your ambition, and your relationship with money over time. Millions of people spend their entire lives believing their job is building their wealth, when in a subtle and almost invisible way, it's doing the opposite. And by the time they realize it, decades have quietly slipped by. Let me introduce you to someone. Call him David. David is 52 years old, and by every outward measure, he's successful. He's worked at the same solid company for nearly 30 years, earned steady raises the entire way, and today he takes home a comfortable 6-figure salary. He's never missed a mortgage payment. He's never been in a real financial crisis. If you asked anyone who knows him, they'd say David is doing well, and he'd say the same thing about himself. But when David sat down last month and honestly added up what he actually owns, his savings, his investments, everything he's truly built after 3 decades of reliable earning, the number was frighteningly small. 30 years of a good paycheck and almost nothing to show for it. David isn't lazy. He isn't reckless. He simply fell into a trap so quiet and so common that most people never even see it happening. And that trap is the paycheck itself. This isn't a story about quitting your job or that jobs are bad. A steady income is a genuine gift, and most wealth is built on top of one. It's about understanding a hidden trap woven into the very nature of a regular paycheck, one that lulls people into patterns that feel safe but quietly keep them from ever getting ahead. The paycheck is comfortable, and comfort is exactly the problem, because comfort is where financial growth goes to sleep. So let me show you the specific ways your paycheck may be quietly keeping you poor, why it happens to almost everyone without their noticing, and how to keep the security of a steady income without falling into the trap it sets. Because the goal was never to earn less. It was to make sure that what you earn actually turns into something. Start with the most insidious mechanism, the one that operates entirely beneath your awareness. A steady paycheck creates the illusion of security, and that illusion kills urgency. When money arrives reliably, every 2 weeks, like clockwork, your brain quietly concludes that everything is fine. There's no crisis, no pressure, no reason to change anything. The money will come again, as it always does. And that feeling of everything is fine is precisely what prevents people from ever building real wealth, because wealth is built by people who feel a reason to build it. The comfort of the paycheck removes that reason. You don't save aggressively, invest seriously, or pursue anything risky because you don't feel like you have to. The regular income has soothed you into a slow, comfortable drift, and drifting, year after year, is how a person arrives at retirement with almost nothing, despite decades of steady earning. Think about how strange that is. The person living paycheck to paycheck on a small income often feels intense pressure about money, and that pressure, uncomfortable as it is, sometimes drives them to hustle, to learn, to find a way out. But the person with the comfortable salary feels no such pressure, and so they never move. It's a cruel paradox. The very comfort that a good paycheck provides can be the thing that keeps you exactly where you are for your entire working life. Security, when it becomes complacency, quietly becomes the enemy of wealth. David felt safe every single year, and that feeling of safety is precisely what let 3 decades slip by without him ever building anything. Now, layer on the second mechanism, and it's the one that quietly cancels out every raise you'll ever get. The paycheck grows, and your lifestyle grows to match it, so you never actually get ahead. This is lifestyle inflation, and the steady paycheck is its perfect breeding ground. Because the money is predictable, you feel safe committing to bigger fixed expenses, the nicer apartment, the newer car, the upgraded everything. Each raise feels like progress, but within months, your spending has quietly expanded to consume it, and you're right back to feeling stretched, just at a higher number. The paycheck goes up and your wealth stays flat because the entire increase gets absorbed into a bigger life. This is exactly what happened to David, and it happens so gradually that it's almost impossible to notice in the moment. When he got his first big raise in his 30s, he didn't invest it. He bought a bigger house because he could finally afford the payment. When the next raise came, he upgraded the cars. Then came the vacations that matched his new income, the furniture, the memberships, the 100 small comforts that each felt earned and reasonable. Every raise was real, and every raise vanished, absorbed into a lifestyle that expanded to swallow whatever he made. 30 years later, David earns 3 times what he did at the start, and he feels exactly as stretched as he did back then. That's the trap in its purest form. He spent his whole career running faster and stayed in precisely the same place because the paycheck that grew was matched dollar for dollar by a life that grew with it. There's a third mechanism, and it's the most limiting of all. A paycheck ties your income directly to your time, and time is the one thing you can never get more of. When you earn a salary, you're trading hours for dollars, and there are only so many hours. No matter how hard you work, your income is capped by the number of hours in a day and the rate someone is willing to pay for them. This feels normal because it's how almost everyone lives, but it's a quiet ceiling. The wealthy, by contrast, build income that isn't tied to their time, money that comes from investments, ownership, assets that produce returns whether they're working or sleeping. The person living purely on a paycheck has no such engine. They are the engine, and the moment they stop, the income stops. That's not wealth. That's a very well-paid form of running in place. And this ceiling has a hidden cruelty to it. Because your income is capped by your hours, the only ways to earn more are to work more hours or to climb to a higher paying role, both of which have hard limits, and both of which cost you the very thing you're trying to enjoy, your life. You can trade more of your finite time for more money, but you can never buy the time back. The wealthy figured out that the goal isn't to trade time for money more efficiently, it's to eventually stop trading time for money at all, to build assets that earn independently of your presence. But you can only build those assets if you take a portion of your paycheck and convert it into them. And that's the exact step the comfortable paycheck quietly talks you out of taking. And here's where the trap tightens, because the paycheck doesn't just limit you, it actively discourages you from building anything else. When your basic needs are comfortably met by a reliable salary, the motivation to create additional income streams quietly evaporates. Why start the side project, learn the new skill, build the investment portfolio, or take the calculated risk when the paycheck already covers everything? The comfort becomes a cage with invisible bars. The very reliability that feels like a blessing removes the pressure that would have pushed you to build real independent wealth. So people stay exactly where they are, year after year, comfortable and stuck, mistaking the absence of crisis for the presence of progress. There's a name for the deeper version of this trap, and it catches even high earners: golden handcuffs. The better the paycheck, the more your entire life gets built around needing it. The bigger mortgage, the more expensive lifestyle, the fixed commitments that all assume the salary will keep flowing. And the more your life depends on that paycheck, the more terrified you become of ever losing it, which means the less willing you are to take any risk that might build real wealth. The high earner with no savings can't quit to start a business, can't take a lower-paying job they'd love, can't weather a layoff, because every part of their life is calibrated to a paycheck they can't afford to lose. The salary that was supposed to buy freedom bought a beautifully decorated prison instead, and the person inside often can't even see the bars because the cage is so comfortable. There's a fourth, subtler cost, and it's psychological. A steady paycheck can quietly convince you that you're doing fine, when the real measure of your finances is being ignored entirely. Because the money keeps arriving, you never feel the need to look closely at your actual net worth, the real number that measures whether you're building anything. You feel wealthy-ish, comfortable, secure, so you never confront the uncomfortable truth that you might be 45 years old, decades into a solid career, with very little to show for it. The paycheck is a kind of anesthetic. It numbs the alarm that should be going off, the one that would make you change course while there's still time. People wake up to this far far too late, often only when the paychecks are about to stop, and by then the most valuable resource of all, time for their money to compound, is largely gone. This is the part that makes David's story genuinely sad, and it's a warning for anyone still early enough to avoid it. The most powerful force in building wealth is time, the decades over which invested money quietly compounds into a fortune. David had that time. He had 30 years, the exact ingredient that could have turned even modest, consistent investing into something life-changing. But the paycheck kept him comfortable enough that he never felt the urgency to start, and so the years that should have been doing the heavy lifting slipped by, one comfortable paycheck at a time. Now, at 52, he has money coming in, but very little time left for it to grow. He has to build in a decade what he could have built effortlessly in 3. The cruelest part of the paycheck trap isn't the money it costs you, it's the time. And time is the one thing no future paycheck can ever buy back. So let's be clear about what this all means, because it points somewhere genuinely useful. The problem was never having a paycheck. The problem is treating the paycheck as the destination rather than the tool. Used one way, a steady income is a trap that lulls you into comfortable stagnation for 40 years. Used another way, that exact same paycheck becomes the most powerful wealth-building fuel available to an ordinary person. Because it's reliable, predictable money you can systematically redirect toward things that actually build wealth. The paycheck itself is neutral. Everything depends on whether you let it make you comfortable or you use it deliberately to buy your way out of needing it. The same steady income that trapped David could have freed him. The only difference is what a person does with it before the comfort sets in. So how do you keep the security of a paycheck without falling into the trap it sets? The shift is mostly one of mindset, turned into a few concrete actions. First, stop treating your paycheck as money to live on, and start treating a portion of it as money to convert into assets, investments, ownership, things that will one day produce income without your time attached. Before your lifestyle gets a vote, redirect a fixed slice of every paycheck into the wealth-building engine you don't yet have automatically, so the comfort never gets a chance to absorb it. This one move, done consistently, is the single thing that separates the people who build wealth on a salary from the people who don't. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you move automatically before you ever see it. Second, refuse to let your lifestyle rise every time your income does. This is the discipline David never had, and it's the one that would have changed everything for him. Each raise is not a signal to spend more. It's an opportunity to widen the gap between what you earn and what you keep, and to feed that widening gap into your future. Imagine if, instead of upgrading his life with every raise, David had kept his lifestyle steady and invested each increase. The exact same career, the exact same paycheck would have produced a completely different man at 52. One with real wealth and real freedom instead of a comfortable treadmill. The raises were never the problem. Letting them vanish into a bigger life was. Third, and most importantly, use the security of the paycheck as a launchpad, not a couch. The reliability that could lull you to sleep is the exact same reliability that could fund a side project, a portfolio, a second stream of income, the thing that eventually makes the paycheck optional. This is the mindset shift that flips the entire trap on its head. The stable income that makes most people complacent can, for the person who sees clearly, be the safest possible foundation from which to build something bigger. You have a reliable paycheck covering your needs. That's not a reason to stop. It's the ideal launch conditions to start because you can take intelligent risks and build real assets without gambling your survival. Most people waste that stability on comfort. The few who use it as a springboard are the ones who get free. Because that's the real goal hiding underneath all of this. The point was never to escape the paycheck out of resentment. The point is to use it, consciously and aggressively, to build something that means you no longer depend on it, so that one day the paycheck becomes a choice instead of a life sentence. The people who stay poor on a good salary are the ones who let the paycheck make them comfortable. The people who build real wealth are the ones who took that same steady income and quietly, relentlessly converted it into freedom. Same paycheck, two completely different lives, separated entirely by whether the money was spent on comfort or converted into ownership. Which is the quiet truth at the center of it all. Your paycheck isn't making you poor because it's too small. It's making you poor if it's making you comfortable enough to stop trying. Wake up to that, redirect even a portion of it toward things that grow on their own, and the very same paycheck that was keeping you stuck becomes the tool that finally sets you free. David's story doesn't have to be yours, but only if you act while you still have the one thing he ran out of, which is time. The number that lands in your account was never the point. What you do with it before your lifestyle swallows it is the whole game. Start converting your paycheck into wealth today, even a little, and let the years that David wasted become the years that quietly make you free.